Good evening and welcome. Today we have a book to be discussed, and to discuss the book, Daughter of Two Rivers, is the author himself and Pradeep, a dear friend of not only the CIC but a personal friend. So, welcome both of you. Let me just quickly introduce both of them. Dr. Arun Krishnan, the author, is the CMD of Mysore Polymers. He is an engineer, a scientist, an entrepreneur, and author. A polyglot and musician, he has lived across 4 countries, worked across academia and industry. His published works in historical fiction include The Battle of Vadapi Trilogy and The Daughter of Two Rivers. Incidentally, his last book, the trilogy, was also launched at the CIC, and so we are happy to welcome you back. And we hope we get many more such occasions to welcome you to the CIC stage. Pradeep is a well known persona of Chennai. He's a graduate of the London School of Economics and also the JNU. He has a PhD in history on the role of temples in medieval Tamil Nadu. With over 2 decades of experience, including roles at TVS, Cognizant, Infosys, and McKinsey, he consults on behavioral change using historical insights. He is also an author. He has authored 11 books on Tamil Nadu's culture, written 200 plus articles, and has appeared on Netflix, History TV, Discovery, and TEDx. To give you an advance notice, he also figures on this year's shortlist of the Valley of Words Literary Festival. So I hope, Pradeep, you win over there, and then we have you talk to us about your experience. So without further ado, let me welcome onto the stage the author and the discussant, Arun and Pradeep.
Arun, fantastic to have you back here.
Yep, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming. I think we should start with how this book came about and maybe a few words about the trilogy as well.
Okay, first of all, thank you to CIC for inviting me. It's always a pleasure. Last time I was there with Dr. Chitra Madhun Madam, and so now with Pradeep. Uh, it's interesting. So I was actually, I was in between. I just written the trilogy, and I was thinking about what to write. I'd gone to Pune to the Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute, Bori, and there's a manuscript division there. So I went in, there were old manuscripts, 500-year-old palm leaf Mahabharata and all that. And what caught my attention was a small tablet that had something like Sumerian written on it, like clay tablet. So there was a lady who was working there. I asked her, you know, how come there is a Sumerian tablet here? And it said Akkadian tablet or something. She said it was found off the coast of Mumbai. Okay. And it was about, I think, 600, 700 BCE. So then, and I asked her what it was about. And she told me that there was, you know, it's about a slave being freed or something like that. So that set the wheels in motion. And before I walked out of that room, I told her, I'm going to write a book about it. So that was now, when I started thinking about that, um, I said, okay, I'm going to set it in the Sindhu Saraswati civilization, right? Because it will, if they were trading or they were exchanging folks in 600 BCE, there's no reason they wouldn't have done it 1,000 years earlier. And we know that the Mitanni had, I think right now we can say they immigrated out of India into Syria and Damascus in those areas. And so I said, okay, it's plausible. Now, I'm a historical fiction writer. I'm not a historian like Dr. Madhavan. So I don't have to, as long as it's plausible, I'm okay with writing it. So I said, okay, I'm going to set it in the Sindhu Saraswati civilization. And then when I started thinking about it, I said, okay, what do I do next? Now, at that point in time, there was in Rakhi Gadi, you know, there was this discovery of some skeletons there. And there was a discovery of the skeleton of a couple. I said, aha, okay. So, what else was going on during that time? The Saraswati River was drying up. Okay. Okay. So, that became another point in the story. So, these are kind of the pieces that I used to come about with it. And so, the story, just to give you somebody asked me for a brief synopsis of it. Um, it starts
Without the spoiler alerts.
without the spoiler alerts. It starts off in the Sindhu Saraswati civilization. The Saraswati is drying up, and we know from geological evidence that it's supposed to have dried up around 1800 BCE. So they are very worried now because the river is drying up. What do they do for trade? And at that point, they have something that the Babylonians require. And I'm not going to let out what that something is. I'll just hold it for now. So they finally say, okay, we don't have a choice. We're going to give it to them. And so they go all the way to Babylon. And so a majority of the book actually happens in Babylon. And this young man, Arjuna, he goes to Babylon. He's the son of the, you could call him the clan chief of that place in India. He goes to Babylon along with, as a trader and as a military man. They go there, they get enmeshed in the local Babylonian politics. Now, it was an interesting time then. There was there was a person. I'm not going to let that out. That's a spoiler as well. So there was a king there that at that time he wasn't yet a king. So he goes there. He gets enmeshed in it. There's a lot of action that happens. The princess gets kidnapped and how they get the. But more than that, it's about he meets somebody there, and how he falls for her. But then there's a backstory that she has, which relates back to Bharat. Um, so at a superficial level, I would say. So I think of it now. If you ask me, this is like one of those how they would tell us in school. They would take a poem written by somebody and say, "So what was the poet thinking about it?" And then you'd come up with some convoluted explanations. I think after the fact, I'm trying to come up with explanations about it. But there are three levels as I think of it to the story. One is a simple, okay, it's a story about two civilizations that were great civilizations of the past that were interconnected and what happens. At a second level, it's a story of homecoming and what home means to any of us. It's a story of also of civilizational loss, because at the root of it is the fact that the Saraswati River does dry up, and we have managed to preserve that in our racial memory uh, through the goddess Saraswati. So to me, ultimately, and I felt it when I'd gone to the to Prayagraj, to the Kumbh Mela, and we visited where the mythical Saraswati is supposed to be. Well, it's not mythical. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Um, and there's this deep well where that water is supposed to be the Saraswati's water. Now, even a confirmed scientist and rationalist like myself, you had a feeling of, you had goosebumps. I had goosebumps when I stood there, because there is that, I think, that racial memory that's embedded in us. So that's kind of the germ for this whole thing. So there is a sense of, oh, what happens when there's a loss of this life-giving river that basically seeded our civilization.
So there was a tablet on one side, there's a grave with a couple on one side. There's a whole story of how we traded very profitably on both sides with the Tigris Euphrates civilization and with Saraswati and this side. So you've strung all of that together. Something that I noticed in the book was you don't focus too much on the mighty people of that time. A lot, they're actually more to the periphery, uh, which means you have to do that much more research on what was the life of a common man. How did that happen in the book?
Um, So look, the good thing is we have the internet now. Obviously, for when I just let me digress a little bit because I know I didn't answer one part of your first question. You'd asked me to talk a little bit about the Battle of
Yeah.
Vatapi. I'll just connect it to this because even in the Battle of Vatapi, for those of you who haven't read it, is essentially um, many Kalki fans here, I'm assuming, right?
Always.
You've read
Always.
Shivagami in Sabadam. So this is the same thing as Shivagami in Sabadam in the sense it is between Narasimhavarma Pallava and Pulikeshi, but it's my own story, right? And even in that, um, the protagonists are never the kings. The kings are in the periphery. The protagonists are individuals who are common foot soldiers who are going about doing things. So I kind of like to see the world through the common man's eyes rather than, you know, the eyes of a king in the sense. Um, so the research was there's a lot of online research. Obviously, you can't really,
Yeah.
I can't go to Syria right now. So there was a lot of research done. I kind of tried to understand what were the food habits, what did they wear. As a
Yeah.
historical fiction author, you have to make
Yeah.
sure that these are correct. And so, yeah, so a lot of that sort of research. What were the religions like? I mean, obviously, these were both pantheistic
Yeah.
civilizations. And so what kind so you have I have kind of tried to bring that aspect in through dialogues where this guy, when he first goes there, he's asking, hey, so what is your creation myth, right?
Yeah.
And he tells him what the Babylonians saying, how the world was created. And I have the Indian guy say, so he asks him, okay, so what about you, do you have a creator? He said, no, we don't know who our this thing is that there was a void and then the universe came into being. So he says, isn't Brahma supposed to be a creator? He says, no, because nobody knows, because there was creation before the gods came. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm channeling the Nasadiya Sukta from the Rig Veda, which basically says, it ends with the question, but who knows where even the gods came from, because the universe started before the gods were there, something like that.
Yeah.
So I've tried to bring that aspect of it into the book.
And I also noticed that the language that you use in the conversations is not too formal of the old type and is not too, may I say, flippant of the modern type. I think you really bridge that gap very well. So as you write a book like this, does the plot evolve over a period of time? Do you have it all fixed in your mind and then do you start? Especially something like this where there's a rather dramatic turn in the last few chapters, which I for one never thought will happen.
Okay. Thank you for not revealing the spoiler, but
No, I'll be careful with that. Don't
yeah.
worry.
um, I'm one of those who doesn't. So I heard, and this is, J.K. Rowling, for example, plots her stories in excruciating detail. She has Excel sheets, every chapter, she writes exactly what's going to happen. I know authors who do that. I was talking to, say, Amish about it once, and he said, yeah, I do a bit of plotting about it. Sangi also said he can do. It doesn't work for me. I have a vague sort of idea of where the book is. So when I started off, I knew I'm going to start it off in the Sindhu Saraswati
Okay.
civilization, and that's about it.
Okay.
So for me, the characters, everything comes as I write. It comes
Okay.
very naturally.
Okay.
So there's no real. I don't sit and plot.
So less of
ever.
an engineer mindset when you write
Which is
fiction, huh?
surprising, right?
Which is surprising. Maybe it's your outlet as well.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, could be
be.
that as well.
But I don't. I never plot it. Every single. It just flows. I'm just sitting there writing, and I've said this before. Um, I I see it play out like a video for myself, and then all I'm doing is transcribing it in words. What I see in front of my eyes. So
Did writing this book, what were some of the lessons that you learned from the earlier trilogy?
okay, every great question, but every look. I started the first. Okay, let me tell you this. The trilogy, right? My first book was 145 or 47,000 words. It's huge. I mean, it's like 540 pages or something. Um, then I got it published, and the publishers got at me and said, "Listen, this is too much for a book." I said, "Okay, so how much should I write?" They said usually around 80,000 pages. I'm like, how am I going to write 80,000
80,000
pages?
words.
80,000 words per
Yeah.
book. You have to cut it down. I said, I can't.
Yeah.
So my second book of the trilogy was about 120,000 words. I said, hey, listen, I've cut down like 25,000 words. The third book was about 95,000. This book is about 80,000.
Okay.
Okay. So apparently the fiction reading audience these days doesn't have the patience for very long books.
Yeah.
And so you have to write whatever you want to write, you write it within 80,000 words.
60,000 is the word that I've listened to.
60
but
to 80.
yeah, 60
Yeah.
to 80. Okay.
No, you write non-fiction, so it's
Yeah,
nice.
that's why I
you,
heard.
you can afford to let yourself go.
No, even we also have the same problem. But yeah, people don't read with that much of patience.
Yeah. So, but as an author, I actually loved writing my first book because I wasn't constraining myself in my head about. I just let it flow. There was a world building that I did that maybe at some places was slow. I don't know, but I've learned a lot along the way in terms of, you know, like I said, I have these 4 or 5 authors who have influenced the way I think about writing. Um, the first, of course, is Kalki. So I, I I learned. So I grew up outside Tamil Nadu. So I didn't learn Tamil in school, reading and writing. I learned the letters because my mother had taught me as a child. That was enough to read bus signs and maybe Ananda Vigadanla, the little jokes that came. I would read. எழுத்துக்கூட்டி இப்படி படிச்சிருவேன். I hope I can slip into Tamil
Yeah,
here,
you
right?
can.
It's okay. All right. But I couldn't read faster than that. I wanted to read because my father is a very big Tamil literature fan and all. So I wanted to read Kalki in the original. So I started reading Kalki. The first volume took me 1 year to read with the dictionary and everything. And then my speed picked up and kind of. So Kalki's has had a huge influence on the way I write. That first scene of his in Ponniyin Selvan is just, I think, is the most remarkable opening scene of a historical fiction that I've ever read.
Absolutely.
And I'm saying bar none. You take all your Alexander Dumas, Victor Hugo, Kalki's Ponniyin Selvan's first scene is just remarkable for how it is written. Jeffrey Archer,
Okay.
for the way he hooks you from the first sentence, right?
Yeah.
It's just you can't. When you start reading a Jeffrey Archer book, you won't put it down.
And the end is totally different from whatever you thought it
Yeah,
would be.
exactly. Third is I don't know if there are any Western fans here. Louis Lama is a. How many of you have read Louis Lama? Okay, great. So again, Louis Lama, I've got pretty much about 60, 70 of his books at home. Huge fan. In fact, last time when we were here for my trilogy, I was speaking to Mr. Srikumar Verma. And at one point we were talking and he turned to me and he said, "Are you a Lama fan?"
Yeah.
I said, "Yes." "Why?" He said, "You know that scene?"
Mm.
I said, "Yeah, that's actually a Western scene transported in almost into a historical setting.
Why not? Yeah.
And it just works.
It works.
Okay. So that, Alistair MacLean, I love the subtle, understated humor. There have been times when I'm writing and I write something and I'm go, that's so MacLean. And then I'm like, is that plagiarism? No. I mean, it's just that the thought process behind how I put that was very MacLeanish in that understated Brit humor that he sometimes uses. So these are some of the folks who have kind of influenced
Right.
my writing.
So while on influence, how has this book influenced you as you wrote it and then working with the editor, now that it's out, how has it influenced you as a person?
I think there is, again, there is a civilizational connect that you feel. I think it came out also during the Mahakumbh. We went to the Mahakumbh, right? How many of you have gone to the Mahakumbh this year? A few. Okay.
Quite a few, yeah.
It was just an incredible experience. Knowing that you're there and doing something that we as a civilization have done for thousands of years brings a connect which is remarkable, right? At least I felt it. And maybe I felt it because I'd also written this book by then. But what it does is there's a lot of uh, history, the way it's been drilled into us. And I'll go off on my favorite. Can I go off on a rant
A
for a
bit,
bit?
yes.
A bit.
We're
We've
short
on
on time,
time.
but yeah,
I'll go a 2 minute rant.
sure.
You know, the way history's been taught to us is just incredible, right? Um, every nation teaches history with a view to, endanger or enforcing a feeling of pride in their native culture and civilization, except ours. Where we've been taught to hate our culture and civilization. We have been always taught that we were losers, that people came repeatedly from outside, whacked us, and went away, and we did nothing about it. It doesn't explain the fact that why we are still the oldest surviving Bronze Age civilization in the world. And I use these words very carefully because we are the oldest surviving Bronze Age civilization in the world. The mantras that we use now are the same mantras that were used by our Bronze Age ancestors. There's no other civilization like that. And we survived. So we couldn't have survived by just being whacked by people. Obviously, we hit back. But to me, that there is almost an effort at denying us our civilization by saying, oh, you guys came from outside as well. So you don't own this land. And by the way, we never say we own this land. We belong to this land. Everything is reverential for us. The rivers, the mountains. We have this running joke that our country, anytime there's a small hillock, we'll have a temple on top of it. And we lived in Japan for a couple of years, and it was true for the Japanese, right? They would have shrines on every mountain that was there. Um, so it's that kind of thing. I think uh, personally, I kind of understood the continuity of our
Yeah,
civilization.
and I think that shows very palpably in the book the connection that the characters have to their home, and the way you brought out through conversations how they are not only connected but they are also they embody the richness of that culture and of that region. And I thought I was quite impressed that a lot of it was done without too much of description. You chose conversations people had to develop the plot and to develop the character rather than just you coming in and describing what a place was, which I think was very good. We're at about 20 minutes. I want to give time for people to ask questions.
Sure.
It'd be lovely to hear you read out some part of the book
Sure.
that called to you.
I'll read out one passage. It's a slightly, maybe 2 pages. I hope you don't mind.
That should be okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
so this is when they have come back and they're walking through this landscape where the river has dried up um, and the habitats have been abandoned. Okay, so this is what. So as they walked from the upper to the lower town, they noticed the same mix of dilapidation and rubble that had confronted them in the little villages that they had come across along the way. The only difference lay in scale. So then this character says, to think that people lived here for thousands of years, grew up, ate, played, worked, prayed, loved, raised kids, shared their hopes and dreams. Think of the millennia of memories that lived on because of the people who lived here. Look at that soot covered hearth, still showing signs of the last meal that had been cooked on it. Look at these streets and marketplaces that would have been a beehive of activity. Traders calling out their wares, women haggling with them, children playing hopscotch on the streets, chariots rumbling through them, horse and bullock drawn carts trundling through the lanes, potters making those lovely pots with the beautiful designs, bead makers lovingly making the necklaces that are so prized in distant places like Babylon. All of it gone, just like that. Who knows, in a mere 100 years, this place might be nothing more than a memory. A millennium hence, not even that. I wonder what our descendants who stumble upon this place a few thousand years later will think of it. Will they look at these places with dry eyed practicality? What will they infer as they look at the remains of the houses and pottery and seals? Will they wonder what the lives of the people who lived here for ages would have been like? Or will the millennia wipe out all traces of the lives and memories of these people? If that is so, why do we humans even worry about anything? After all life ends in death. Do we know what comes next? There are any number of philosophies, but can we say for sure whether they are true or not? If the ultimate reality is death and dissolution, of the gradual fading away from memory till even the wisps of smoke rising from our burning bodies mingle with the clouds, and all remnants of our having lived on this earth are lost forever, where even the memories of our existence cease to be, why do we strive to achieve whatever little we can in our humdrum everyday lives? I'll stop there.
Lovely. So, just to summarize, what you've looked at is a Sumerian seal. You've looked at a grave. You've looked at, I think, your own experience of the Kumbh of answering the question on what is home. You brought all these together in this wonderful book of people moving from India, at least some people moving from India because of a river that's going to dry up. They're going to look at a new life. They get enmeshed in Babylon and the local politics, and then what happens with dramatic twists and turns. I also loved the fact that you talked about the authors that have influenced you and how certain styles have influenced you, and more important, how this book has also helped you look at what is home, what is the richness of this culture that you belong to, and how you're able to connect the story back to this. We'd love to open it out for questions now, but I also got to say that I was very fortunate to spend a breakfast at Vidya and Arun's home, and I got to say, Vidya's dosas and homemade ice creams are the best that I've had so far. So I'm sure that has contributed. That has contributed a lot. I think we can throw the throw it open to questions now, and I'd request people to ask short, precise questions so that he can answer them in the most efficient way.
Do you pray to begin with, or something that gives you that inspiration to keep writing?
No, nothing of that nature.
No
I j-
meditation, no
no,
nothing.
no meditation, no nothing. I just sit. I think the act of writing is my meditation in that sense. I just sit and um, I, I can't write for a long time. Yeah, I know authors who write 7, 8 hours a day. I can't. I can write maybe an hour to hour and a half max. But in that 1 hour, hour and a half, I'll be completely locked in on it.
Does the ice cream help as well?
Yeah, no, I try and keep away from it, much to her annoyance, but you can't have, I mean, she has like 7 tubs of ice cream sitting at home at any given point in time. So if I were to get attached to it, it'll be fatal. Um, 2 books, actually, I've already written 3 more books. Um, 2 are with my agent. One is set during the Gupta period, and the other one is slightly different from me. It's not a historical fiction as such, although I should, itihasa is history. So it is a retelling of the Mahabharata, but in a slightly different way. What I've done is it's called the Mahakshana. So I've taken key moments in the Mahabharata and uh, written about those moments. What was that character thinking at those turning points in the story? So it starts off with Shantanu. It follows the Mahabharata chronology, and the story is covered, but each of those is told from a different character's point of view at the moment a particular decision had to be taken or something like that. So we'll see. I that is probably the one that's going to come out next. Yeah,
All the best for that.
thank you. Yes, sir.
When you're thinking of the title, what does it symbolize in the context? When you say the daughter of the two rivers, was it just geographical, or are you symbolizing something more metaphysical?
Okay, this is like that school question. But honestly, the title was the hardest bit. Okay, um, this is the title that was supposed to be my placeholder title till I could find a a better title. I just couldn't find it. So it kind of the protagonist is actually the main protagonist. I think is the. Would you agree that it's
I
the
agree.
woman?
It's a woman, absolutely.
It's the woman.
yeah.
So the daughter of two rivers is because it's her story, and the two rivers are basically the Euphrates and the Saraswati, because she's split her life between those two, in a sense. Yeah.
Just another sort of question, if I may. I mean, you brought up Amish, and I think, and I had a bit of a discussion with him when he was visiting. When you're writing this, and I think, how do you kind of balance the historical accuracy with the imaginative liberty? I mean, this is the hardest for writers like yourself, and I
Yeah.
think, and what goes through your mind, and I think, and how do you sort of bring that out?
See, the historical accuracy I try and maintain in terms of the social morals of the time, the um, the clothing, the food, the religious observances, those kinds of things. But the story itself gives me a lot more play for creativity, right? In this particular case, there is not. So actually, and I was telling this to somebody, the further back in time I go, the easier it is for me, because um, I have less people like Dr. Madhavan who will take issue with it. Because there's really, as the farther back you go, the less information there is. So you don't really have to worry about it too much. But I still want to make sure that uh, the the facts about how people lived, what kind of weapons they used, all of that has to be very, very accurate. You can't simply make up, weaponry that wasn't existing at that point in time. So, but at the same time, I was watching this. How many of your Jack Reacher fans have you read the Jack Reacher books? Lee Child. So I was watching a Lee Child masterclass where he said that as a fiction writer, if there is a uh, if there is a play between what is plausible and what has to be exactly accurate, always go with what is plausible. You don't need to worry so much about what is exact. So in this, for example, iron plays a very big role in this book. Now, there could be some questions about, oh, was iron there at that point in time? There is enough evidence, but there could be folks who disagree. But for me, that plausibility helps. So I'm good.
And the plot is more important in
Yeah.
fiction, right? So will we see you writing books at some point in time on the, say, the independence period or the colonial period, where there's a lot more material available?
My goal is to bring out those stories which are not well known.
Okay.
So I'm not going to write about Shivaji Maharaj or these kinds of things, because it's all pretty well known. There have been enough stuff done, but there's so many stories in India that, and so many regions where the histories aren't represented, they aren't told. People don't understand, don't even know them, right? Like Lasit Borfukhan.
Yeah.
It's only known now because Sanjeev Sanyal wrote about it. Yeah. And then you had Martanda Verma and the Battle of Kolachal and all of that. So I want to tell stories. Initially, I thought I'll tell only South Indian stories because I think the South has been ignored in its history telling because it's very Delhi centric. But, and again, I was researching. I have this whole R.C. Majumdar 11 volume set at home, which is it's like a Bible.
Very much a go.
Right? Yeah. It's a go-to for me. And I was actually researching for another book. And my fifth book happened because as I was researching that, I came across this little passage which stopped me and said, that's a story. So I kind of put aside whatever I was researching. I did that book. So, but yeah, I will, any little thing that I think has a good story, I'll do it, provided there's a good historical context.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Just a suggestion and a thought. When you looked at the issue saying that you were looking at stories which are pretty antiquated and which otherwise not been told in a big way, be it from the south or otherwise, I had a suggestion about looking at the course of Alexander's movement into India, at the periphery of India, because Indus was India.
Yeah.
You can look at that option.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. It goes. I'll file. So he said he wants me to write about maybe Alexander's foray into India. Um, there is a story there, but what I've realized is I keep at any given point in time I have like 6 or 7 ideas, and then like I said, this I came across this little tablet and it just took me over. Similarly, this book where I was talking about the Mahabharata Mahakshana, the way it came out is on Twitter or X. I had put out a tweet about what Sri Krishna must have felt at the last moment of his leaving the earth, that avatar, end of that avatar. And that got a lot of response. And I'm like, okay, if that appeals, why don't I say it from the point of view of each protagonist at each moment in time? That's how. So, and I was, in fact, my next book, I'd already finished researching it, but I could never start it because this thought kept intruding for me, and I had to write this book before I could go back to that other one. It has to be a trigger for me. I don't know if how it is for other authors. I'm not very, like I said, I don't plot it out and all, but there's this insane urge to write that book, and I just
The story finds you.
the story finds me in a sense. Yeah.
There was a lady on that side who had a
I
question.
have a question. So I also do storytelling. So I came here because I try to do storytelling related to historical fiction. I'm also trying to write. So one big doubt that I keep having is when I write about how a character acts or how they think, I don't want to accidentally make them too modern.
Yeah.
Because because they don't know how the future is gonna be. So based on so I always keep struggling. Is it too modern? Is this how people were there those days? So how do you come across that obstacle?
Okay. It's a great question, and I think the way I do it is you're absolutely right. We shouldn't put some of our modern social mores on those people back then. At the same time, there are certain things which are universal, which have existed since we, the Homo sapiens species, came about, maybe, which is all of the emotions, right? Love and anger and greed, desire, lust, and altruism. All of this has always existed. So I try and bring those out rather than any specific. I don't impose modern feminist ideas on my characters then. But in all my books, there are very strong women characters who are strong in the sense of being independent minded, who think. But there must have been, I mean, come on, our greatest, we had Draupadi, who was supposed to be this beautiful, strong, independent person. So you always had these people. So there's no reason not to talk about them that way, as long as you're careful not to intrude upon it with current trends and everything. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it answered my question. And one more question I have is that we write, I mean, the stories are written in English, but we also have to use the language of those days. So how do you like switch and use it correctly? Like,
So okay. So this is something I find very irritating in some of our movies, right? Let's take Tamil movies. How many of you are non-Tamilians here, or people who don't know Tamil?
I think you should be fine.
I should be fine, right? Now, when we watch Tamil historical fiction, the language suddenly goes very old-fashioned, right? I was watching Ponniyin Selvan, and again, there's no need to make that language to be archaic to make it feel historical. The settings are historical. You can still make it so that the modern generation can understand the movie is wise. So I kind of I write it like I would write. I'm speaking to you. That's all I'm doing. I love this quote by Louis Lama. He said, "I think of myself as a modern day troubadour or a storyteller who's sitting around a campfire and telling a story." So I kind of think of it that way. I think of when my grandmother used to tell me stories. She wasn't flowery. She wasn't using old-fashioned language. She was just telling a story. That's kind of what I want to do. So that's how I think we can keep it relevant. You have to be aware of certain things are untranslatables, right? Dharma. I don't think dharma is translatable in English at all. You can't call it, it's not religion, it's not, it's a curious mix, it's the right way, path, whatever. So, dharma, I write dharma. But I have a little note for hopefully my non Indian readers explaining what dharma is. But other than that, non translatables, I kind of use it.
And anyway, today we are all reading a book with a phone next to us, so always
Correct.
Google it up.
You
and
can
check
always
it out.
Google it up.
So there's one question that I wanted to ask you earlier on, which was how much of AI have you dabbled with as you write books?
Um, so I'm part of this little WhatsApp group of authors, and there's always this debate that goes on about whether you should use AI or not. I am old-fashioned. I'm absolutely in the I will never use AI to write anything. In fact, I was telling guys, if there are people who are going to use AI and churn out 10 books a year, I'm going to put a label on my book saying written by humans or something like that, so that you have to kind of make that. So I don't even use it for. I know authors who use it for plotting.
Okay.
I know authors who use it for editing and all of that. So far, in all the 7 books I've written, there's been absolutely zero AI in it. Because I just don't. I want it to be my thought process. I don't want it to. It's easy, right? If I describe a character, it's easy. If you describe a chapter even in ChatGPT, saying, "Hey, in this chapter, these are the characters. This is the backstory. They are going to a temple. They're going to meet this person. Give me 1,500 words. AI will do that for you.
Fantastic job.
Yeah, but it's not you. It's AI. So I don't want that. No, I will not use it. I'm going to put that label next time saying written by
Good
human.
idea. I think we have time for another 1 or 2 questions. And
Yes, ma'am.
Given that you've written history or a historical novel, are there characters or events that you thought about in the beginning and then realized it doesn't fit for whatever reason? That you dropped, that you changed, that you erased?
I'll tell you from this book. The book, actually, the prologue of the book was very different. The prologue started with a fight that was going on, a wrestling match between a king and another person. And the king is wondering, why is it that my mace is shattering and the other guy's mace is not? Why do I feel the hits a lot more? You know which fight it was?
yeah, I can imagine.
Which fight was it? Would it have been? Fight between 2 wrestlers. Close, not Duryodhana and Bhima. Anything else? Okay, another fight with Bhima. What was it? Jarasandha. So it actually started with that prologue. And after I had written it, the whole book, the editor told me, you know what, that really doesn't fit here. It's nice, but for some reason, can you change it? So I moved one of my epilogues to the prologue, and there is a mention of it in a conversation, if you remember.
And I think it's better, that one will fit your Mahabharata book better. Actually.
Yeah. So that it is there. In fact, in the Mahabharata book, I kind of use some of it there. But yeah, you always do that, but it doesn't happen very often to me. So usually, what does happen is if a character, like in Vatapi, there is a character of a little boy. The way it came about was, so this one of the protagonists is waiting at Dhanushkodi going to Sri Lanka. He's waiting, no, not Dhanushkodi, something. Dhanushkodi, I think. He's waiting for a ship or boat to take him to Lanka. Now, I told you I see it like a movie, right? So I'm sitting there, I'm at the thing, okay, he's waiting there, there's a queue, and other people are going to go. What's happening there? Maybe street dogs are around, there are people selling things. What else? Oh, there's this little boy who is feeding the street dogs. So that was the germ of a character which then plays a huge role. I had absolutely no idea that character would actually become a major role in the book. So that kind of a thing happens with me, where for no reason I'll just put in a character and then suddenly I like the character so much that it develops on its own.
Super. So I think you're going to be here for some more time, and
Yeah.
the book copies of the book are available for sale. I would highly recommend, as a historian, as a writer, as a reader, to buy the book. I found it thoroughly enjoyable. The twists and turns and the way you brought through all of these things through conversations, not kept it too verbose and not kept it too intellectual. I really like that, and I.
Just so
Sure.
that's another thing I picked up from one of the Lee Child masterclasses, right? He said, you do a lot of research, but don't do a research dump on your reader. So just because you've read about a lot about this, don't dump it. And if you do dump it, then bring it out as part of moving the story forward rather than, yeah.
So I think it's a plot that's important.
Yeah.
And whatever you can do to flesh out the plot is what is important.
Yeah.
So I leave Chandra to do the final comments. But thank you very much for joining us
Thank
today,
you
Arun.
so much.
Pleasure.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'm sure they've been just short and sweet about the whole book, whetting your appetite to go and buy a copy. But I couldn't resist, though the Arun seems to be very allergic to the AI. AI has a very good review of your book.
Oh, okay.
And I just downloaded that. It says it's given you almost 4 out of 5.
Okay.
And it says Arun Krishnan's Daughter of Two Rivers is a richly imagined historical novel that bridges ancient India and Mesopotamia in remarkable literary flair. Set in 1800 BCE, the story follows blah blah blah, and then the novel blends meticulous historical research with poetic storytelling, making ancient worlds feel both vast and intimate. Krishnan's characters are emotionally layered, and the pacing is thoughtful with a narrative that balances political intrigue and emotional depth. While the plot moves quietly at times, the book rewards readers with moments of deep resonance and insight. A compelling read for lovers of historical fiction, especially those drawn to stories of cross cultural encounters and forgotten links between civilizations. So, congratulations. Thank you
By the
for
way,
coming down to our platform once again, and hope to see you with your new books which are waiting to be revealed.
thank you so much. Just so you know, I don't have an aversion to AI because I spent my entire career doing data science in AI, pretty much. So I know how AI works. I've actually written. It's just that yes, I do have an aversion to AI for writing. That much is
Like organic farming now. It's organic writing.
organic writing.
Yeah. A few announcements about our next events. 9th August, we have Major General Indrabalan talking about the Sindoor operation. 16th August, we have Madras Art Deco Architecture by Sujata Shankar. And on 19th August, we have Ambassador Rakesh Sood talking to us on the current foreign affairs. And on 27th August, we have Mr. T.S. Krishnamurthy, the ex-Chief Election Commissioner, talking to us about his book, Beyond the Ballot. I'm sure all of you would be interested in attending these functions. You're welcome. And please do continue to support the CIC. Thank you.
Thank you so much.